What if I told you that your vote might be meaningless, even in a democracy? In this video, we'll expose the truth about how our current voting system fails to represent millions of Americans. But don't despair. We'll also reveal a mind-blowing solution inspired by a World War II computing technology that could revolutionize elections and make every vote count. I'm Evan Goldstein, a licensed professional engineer and data scientist, and I keep a profit-centered focus on the AI Capitalist channel. But capitalism can't thrive in an era of political instability. As I mentioned in my video about America's spiraling towards civil war, there's already a great deal of data showing that we are heading into a period of political instability and increasing violence.
In case you haven't watched the news over the last year, one of the root causes of political violence in this country is a sense by different factions that make up society of having been disenfranchised. So if we're going to address this sense of alienation, let's look at the elephant in the room: America's extreme and very polarized politics. We'll use ice cream as an analogy. So let's say that you're back in summer camp and every week your bunk gets to vote on the ice cream flavor for your end of week party, which sounds awesome, right? Ice cream. But here's the twist. Out of the 20 kids, 11 of them are ride or die chocolate. They just won't take anything else. So you can guess what happens. Chocolate wins the vote every single time. Now, I love chocolate, but let's imagine being one of those 9 kids who never get to taste their own favorite vanilla ice cream. Week after week, they're stuck watching their classmates enjoy that chocolate. And they're just left thinking, man, when's it going to be my turn? If this scenario gives you deja vu, it might be because the USA and other similar democracies work in the same way. Now, we're going to break it down with some real-world examples. We've got New York over here with their Democratic senators forever. And then right down the road, there's Tennessee with Republicans for about this long. It's like they've been stuck in an ice cream parlor that serves only one flavor. And in some of these elections, even in deep red or deep blue states, the split is just 54 to 46. So it's like having 11 chocolate lovers and 9 vanilla fans in our ice cream vote. But instead of sometimes getting vanilla, it's chocolate all day, every day, forever. So for the slight majority of people, you're probably thinking, what's the big deal? I'm on the winning team. But imagine if you moved to a new state and suddenly found yourself on a vanilla team in a chocolate-dominated world. This isn't just about the Senate. Real flavor favoritism is just everywhere, in Congress, in the White House, even in your local government. It's like the whole system is one big chocolate-biased ice cream machine. Shouldn't everyone get to enjoy both flavors? But in reality, it's usually one flavor dominating. New York's been dishing out Democratic senators for over 25 years, and Tennessee's been printing Republican senators for 30 years. It's like these states are stuck in an endless loop. In some areas, the split was as close as 54 to 46. It's like the system is rigged in favor of certain people based on where they live. And nothing spells social instability like a permanently disenfranchised class of people. Shouldn't we see one senator from each party in a nearly 50-50 split state? Now, I'm focusing on the Senate because it's the easiest place to spot this problem in action. So let's pretend that the United States is a giant rectangle, and that rectangle is a gradient with blue for Democrat and red for Republican. If we printed this out, If we printed this out on a simple old printer, the printer would take one look at the middle of the road pickles and decide that you're either with us or against us. You're either red or you're blue. Now what happens when we print it out? We get a mess. We've turned something that's rich and nuanced into a boring red and blue world. That's what's happening in our political system. The printer problem is called quantization. All those lovely shades of purple are forced to pick a side, blue or red. And in the middle of the American democracy, the world doesn't really fit into this kind of a small and narrow-minded one-way box. The solution might come from an unexpected place. In World War II, Allied engineers were scratching their heads over some of the earliest computers, which were developed to calculate the trajectories of bombs falling from a plane. They'd work great in the air, but in the lab, not so much. Allied engineers were having problems with the earliest computers mounted inside aircraft to help calculate bomb trajectories of bombs falling from a plane so that bombers could hit their targets. They found that what worked really well in the air when taken out of the airplane and put in the lab didn't work. It's like trying to do your homework on a roller coaster versus at your desk. You would think it would be easier to do at your desk, but there wasn't anything special about the planes. The reason the bomb sites worked in the air and not in the lab was because of vibration. The rattling from the engines and the movement from the bomb sites that were in the airplanes kept all the components in the computer loose and moving. The computers were actual physical machines back then. In the lab, everything was sticking together like your fingers having an ice cream. The components jammed.
And if you think that AI is helping you hit your targets, I would urge you to push the like button. Pushing like will help spread this value to others by helping me break out of small channel hell, and it lets me know that I'm making something that you find valuable. And I thank you genuinely for your support.
So let's get back to our original example. Let's suppose that we threw a bunch of random blue and red spots all over the gradient. Looks messy, but when we print it with our old school printer, suddenly it looks a lot more like the original gradient than it did before. It's like magic, but it's science. By making things a little messier on purpose, we end up with a better result. It's counterintuitive, but so is most of the cool stuff in science, right? Dithering isn't just for printers or for gradients. Once you start seeing the dithering the world through dither-colored glasses, you realize that this could apply to your elections too. Our current system is like that old printer forcing everything into black and white, blue or red, Democrat or Republican. But what if we added a little noise to the mix? What if we shook things up a little bit? We could end up with a better system that represents what people actually want. In this type of electoral system, we keep our regular voting system, but we add a dash of chaos. After we count all the votes, we throw them into a metaphorical blender and hit pulse a few times. We're talking about randomly tweaking results just a smidge using some fancy algorithms agreed upon beforehand. So we'll take the example of New York. Let's say we've got 100 elections, and each time there's a 51 to 49 split favoring the Republicans. Just in the world, Republicans would win every single election. But in our chaos-embracing world, we might randomly adjust the vote by 2% either way. We just have the Democrats winning about a quarter of the time. The bigger the gap between the candidates, the less likely our tweak is to fix things. So, if someone's winning by a landslide and the other candidate's done a terrible job, the candidate winning by a landslide is still going to win. It's not about changing everything. It's about giving the underdogs a fighting chance when things are close. The downside is that we're basically saying, let's make each election potentially unfair, so that in the long run, everything is made more fair. The system might actually encourage third-party candidates to throw their hat into the ring. But for this to work, we got to commit. We can't just try for a few elections and then bail when things...
It's like going to the gym. You don't see results after one workout, right? We've got to stick with it for the long haul. So what do you think? Are we ready to embrace a little chaos in the name of fairness, or are we too attached to our predictable, if flawed, system? It's a wild idea, but some of the craziest ideas are the ones that change the world. Let me know what you think in the comments.